This is 1010 AIRC 1010 B1, which is about piping and tubing, piping procedures. Okay, in this field, there are so many variations of the different piping and piping material that you're going to be using out there. We're going to only cover a brief section of it, but some of it we're going to put more emphasis on. The reason being, we use a lot of copper, PVC, and iron pipe, and I want to put more emphasis over that than I do some of the others. But let's talk a little bit about what they're used for. Refrigeration lines is one thing, condensate lines, gas lines, and I can't think of anything else right off the top of my head, but then again, what about water lines? Chill water lines, for example. In many cases it may be water cooled, and you would have condenser water lines. Don't limit the fluids just to that. The reason being, there's other types of systems out here that will be using. One of the things that's coming into play, and we don't really get into here, in here is carbon dioxide is the one that's being used, glycol. So don't limit yourself on the thinking there. Fuel lines in particular, though, we're going to be looking at iron pipe. Now there are other pipes that can be used for fuel lines, but one in particular is black iron. Now, I want to show you a little something. The threads on a black iron pipe, I have a short nipple and a reducer coupling here, and I want to pass this around. And I want you to look at how the threads are, hold them up, and take a close look there. I'm going to draw something on the board that's going to help us out too. Okay? If I'm dealing with regular bolts and nuts, I'm going to try to exaggerate this so that you can see what I'm talking about. If I had a bolt right there, the size here is going to be the same size here. The threads coming down through here are not tapered. There's so many threads per inch, but they're not tapered. If I'm looking at a pipe fitting, then these threads are also so many per inch, but you notice that the diameter here and the diameter there are not the same. It's tapered. Okay? There needs to be at least 7 good threads on a piece of pipe. At least 7. You want to use some type of pipe thread joint compound when you put pipe together. Now, you just notice one has no taper. One has the taper. That fitting that's going around. Okay, I have a union right here. Now I'm going to stop what I was just about to say and move on to something else right quick, then I'll come back. When you're using these unions, do not take them apart and throw them in a box and say, okay, they're all the same, because they're not. They may look the same, but these are mated. Those two pieces are actually have been ground to fit one another. They may come out of the same box, but they have been mated to one another, okay? They've been lapped in, what they call lapped. So if I use this from another fitting, maybe the same mate, maybe the same everything, but it's not going to tighten up correctly. Now you would not use any joint compound on this part here, okay? Only on the threads. Now back to where I've seen some misuse on gas pipe. This is made for a flare fitting, okay? Let's see if it's, well, this is not going to do it. That piece that was going around, I may have to get, here it is. Made for a flare fitting. You should notice something. it fits. Okay? But it don't fit. It's loose. It's not made for one another. Now you would think somebody piping up in the field would know that, right? I've seen this done. Now if you got natural gas coming through here, you may say, okay, well, they put pipe sealing compound on it, but that pipe sealing compound is not going to stay. It will leak. You know what? Think about that. Gas leaking up under a house or in a closed place. What's that going to? What's going to happen? Could be. Could be. I don't think I'd want the liability. Okay, but I have found that in the field, and that's scary. It's very scary. So, y'all are here, y'all are learning. Y'all not going to do that. I feel good about that. Okay. All right. Iron pipe. Like I said, we do use it out there a good bit. PVC. PVC used a lot for drain lines in particular, condensate lines, but it can also be used for water supply lines. Now, the fittings are glued together, if you will. It's actually a chemical bond. There is a primer that should be used, and the glue, and I don't have the glue. If you want them clean, that's part of what that's about. When you put them together, you want to push them up and twist. Okay? If you wait too long before you put them together, after you put the glue on there, they're not going to stick. Okay? You don't want to keep moving it after you glue it either, because you'll ruin that bond. But if they're not fit properly, they will come loose. Now, PVC is very good for cold water. You don't want to use it for hot water. CPVC, a little different in the color, different in the size. That should be used for hot water. You can use the PVC for hot or cold. A lot of people do. All right. Some of the other fittings that I want to just point out that we use in pipes. This is a ball valve. Okay? It's a full open port. I don't know if you can see that or not. Okay? Look and see what the valve is rated for. Some valves may not be rated for gas line. They may be rated for water or other fluids, but look and see what they're rated for. Look and also see what the pressure rating is. Okay, where do you see that being a problem? What if somebody uses a fitting or a valve that is rated for water only on a gas line? Natural gas can go places that water won't. It can escape through the small hose. Some gas fittings cannot be used or may not be rated for water. If you use a gas fitting on a water line, you're bound to have a problem. Okay? One of the other things that I've run into, especially with some gas applications, is the restriction inside that valve may be large enough to cause a problem of pressure loss down the line. So just make sure that the fitting is rated for the material that's going to go through it and the pressure ratings. Okay, some of the other pipes that we see out there, I haven't gotten to the copper yet. We're going to do a little more extensive on the copper. But to cover the others, you will see some of the, I'm trying to think what it's called. It's not PVC, it's different kinds of plastic pipe.
ABS.
ABS, and there was another one that...
PE, polyethylene.
Polyethylene. We don't deal a whole lot with that. But, you know, I don't want you to get out there and say, well, I've never heard of this. Okay? There's a lot of stuff out there and new stuff coming out every day. Be aware of it, make sure that you know how to use it. I'll give you an example of how that can be a big factor. Some, and like I said, we don't usually get into the plumbing aspects, but then again, you may have to. If you have to tie into a plumbing line, there's some plumbing lines out here that actually use a welder, if you will, to put them together. And there's no compression fittings or mechanical fittings that attach. They actually have to be, the instrument that does it, you have to rent. So, you know, when you get in a situation like that, that's special stuff, yes, but be aware of that, okay? All right. I think it's time we move into copper. Copper, and we're going to be talking about mechanical joints. What's the difference between mechanical joints and sweat joints? Sweat is usually brazed or soldered. Okay, mechanical includes flare, includes compression. I have a compression fitting here. You don't see compression fittings used that much in refrigeration because they have a tendency to leak after a little vibration. And what happens in refrigeration lines? You have vibration. So it's not the best place to use it. I'll tell you right now, you'll see it out there, but it may not be the best application, okay? All right, you have a ferrule which goes over the piece of copper pipe. You want to make sure that the nut's on the pipe first, the ferrule next, and then it goes up in the fitting. The problem with this is once you tighten it down, that ferrule is a permanent part of that pipe. So you don't take it back apart, cut a little bit off, and try it again because it's going to, you'd have to have another ferrule to do so. You want to pass that around?
David, we had a question over here.
Yes.
Why do they put them on an ice maker for your line for your ice maker?
Okay.
That's the compression fitting in the vibration zone from the.
Okay. Isn't that usually on the water line though?
That is on the water line.
Okay. The water line, the water doesn't have a tendency to come loose like that. And one thing that happens inside the lines, refrigeration lines, as the compressor does its job, it's going to have pulsations that go all the way through that line all the time, from the piston going up and down, or the compression process. Water line, you're going to have a steady stream. You're not going to have that vibration within the line itself. You may have the external vibration, but not inside. Okay. Good question. All right. Flare fittings. There's a large use of flare fittings in our industry.